All right, so back with some more Edric here. I've made a few changes. The mana base is the same, and I'll scroll down for those of you who are interested in taking a look at it. With one exception, I actually pulled the 6 island, which was a snow-covered island. So I pulled that out of the deck, and I actually put in, I want to say Solemn Simulacrum. Well, I'll show you the changes. I don't remember when I added Solemn, but Solemn's in the deck. Acidic Slime is in the deck. I went ahead and had taken Phantasmal Image out for a while because I didn't like how it works with the equipment, but it's too flexible. I put that back in the deck. Also, because I'm running Solemn and Acidic Slime both now, I have 2 more prime targets for Phantasmal Image to cheat on. It makes the card a little better, so I went in and put it back. And I also put Court of Calling in the deck. This is something that I had a long time ago in Edric, and Court of Calling is actually, so there's a kind of, there's a lot of like hidden synergies in the deck that are maybe not completely obvious at first or second glance. One of them, though, is Court of Calling and Image. This is the other reason why I added Image. So this kind of is like a package deal for me. The Cord, Slime, Solemn, Image group. And the reason is that Cord has a combo with Deranged Hermit. Hermit's a staple in the deck. That's not ever getting cut. But when you add Court of Calling, you can actually cast a Hermit, and after the squirrels come into play, you can tap the Hermit and the 4 squirrels to pay for Cord's Convoke cost, and you can Convoke for 2, which allows you to fetch a Phantasmal Image and create a second Deranged Hermit, and that can get really out of hand really fast. It also gives you the opportunity to tap out for a Deranged Hermit, let your opponent do something nasty, and then you can Convoke directly into Gilded Drake, which is another trick. Either right on the spot or as a combat trick, which is really nice. So the reason why I consider this a package deal, though, is that so with Slime and Solemn, you have 2 more targets for Image, which makes Image a lot stronger. With Cord in the deck, you really want Image as a tutor target for when you happen to do get the Cord Hermit combo. So that makes Image even stronger. So altogether, Image is enhanced by having all those cards there. And then in addition, by putting in the Slime and Solemn together, you have a nicer Birthing Pod chain, and Birthing Pod's a staple in the deck. So there's basically a lot of like synergies that continue to build upon things that were already in the deck, already strong about it. What I took out was I took out Karn on the top end. This deck could run Karn. Karn is a great card. There's nothing wrong with playing it. I'm just not so sure that it needs it. I'm not so sure that it really fits the mold of the deck particularly well. But you know, it's a great card. I think basically what it comes down to is that for 1 more mana you get Terastodon, or for 3 less if you have Natural Order. So I guess that's why Karn doesn't really make the cut here. And then the other card that came out was what was the other card that came out? Mox Diamond came out. I don't like the fact that Mox Diamond is only good when I'm already hitting my opponent with Edric, or if I happen to get with a 31 land deck, getting multiple lands early. It's not the easiest thing, and I don't have the guys that fetch lands and put them into my hand. Like I don't have Sylvan Ranger, for example, so it's a lot less strong, I think. An argument can certainly be made for the card just because it creates like blowout games, but you also risk getting blown out by early removal. With Chrome Mox, you're giving up a card that you don't care about casting in order to cast the cards that you do care about faster. With Mox, you're giving a card that enables you to play your cards in order to play your cards faster. And if the Mox gets taken out, you're now down 2 mana sources, basically. That's pretty painful. Whereas if the Chrome Mox gets taken out, you're down a card, your least good card in your hand. It's a lot easier to deal with. So, and I don't remember what the other cut is, but you've got the list here. So let's go through some games. I had some, so I was testing a lot of different things here. I'm gonna go ahead and filter my results to take out some of these test games. We'll still see a few like test games where the build is a little bit different here earlier today. But basically, I was trying out cards like Springleaf Drum and a couple of other cards that just seem like they should be really good. But because of the way that I've built the deck, because the deck is a hybrid of big mana, ramp, and creatures, it's Springleaf Drum and some of these other cards I'd been testing, Earthcraft and stuff, not as good in this deck. It's why Trade Wind Rider came out as well. Because sometimes you get the big ramp hands and you need cards that just come with a lot of impact on their own and don't require multiple creatures in play. Don't make the assumption that you'll have them. An exception to that is Skull Clamp, because Skull Clamp's insane, and Opposition for the same reason. Anyway, let's go through some games. So I'm just going to spin through the games that I've got here. And there are a couple of them in here at the end with the build as is, and a couple of them with, most of them with actually some changes, and if we run across those I'll show you. But also there's I think 1 or 2 games in here that were just fantastic. So here I am playing against Yasova Dragonclaw, and this card lets him basically cast Ray of Command for 3 mana at the beginning of combat. So it's kind of an interesting card to face, because if my opponent Ray of Commands Edric and then swings with his team, suddenly he's hitting me with my own quality creature every turn, which is pretty gnarly. So anyway, I had an interesting start here. My opponent's coming out slow, and I decided not to pay life because I'm planning to pod, actually. I was thinking about going Jite and then coming in with that. But because I don't pay life for the pod, my opponent's able to miscalculate it, something that I did not confess see coming. So instead I have to go with the next turn, going with the Jite plan, and I have 1 mana left over from shop that I can throw into a expedition map. So go ahead and slam my guy into his guy and kill it. He gets opposition down. During my upkeep I sack the map because I know that I don't want to draw the cards that were on top, and now I go ahead and pay life to start digging for solutions, because with opposition out there's a big threat there. And so if you missed what happened here, I went ahead and drew and strip mined my opponent's green, hoping to keep him off of creatures, and he spent a red to cast Goblin Guide and Skull Clamped it up, and I figured I didn't quite understand where he was going with this, given that I have a Jite with 1 counter left on it. Now I can kill his creature. Perhaps he's hoping I will, so he can dig for potentially, you know, green or multiple creatures to feed the opposition. At the same time, giving me that choice seems poor, but that's just me. At any rate, he doesn't decide to. I figured he'd be oppositioning my City of Brass, trying to kind of deal damage to me and keep me mana suppressed and make Sylvan a little harder to use. But actually his plan is quite different. His plan is to start swinging with Goblin Guide. So he swings with the guide and reveals a mana drain, which is pretty tasty. So I'm about to pay another 8 life here, and even though I don't really have a whole lot going for me, I did find a Nature's Claim, and I also found a Regrowth. And so what I was going to do is probably just regrowth the it's kind of a tough call, but I would probably regrowth the strip mine and then strip his mountain. The other option is to regrow Dryad Arbor, actually, and just play that. And option 3 is just to sit on mana drain, let him continue to Goblin Guide, hope he feeds me lands. Nature's Claim is opposition at the end of his turn if he doesn't do anything. I think in the end maybe that's what I would have gone for. At any rate, my opponent scoops it up, so we never get to find out, but that's totally fine. So Swamp Hawks. That was my first game of the day, which was kind of an interesting start. So yeah, I had a Spell Pierce in here at one point. So I went ahead and cut that. So this is a random second opponent playing the same exact commander, which is really weird. But because I had Spell Pierce, I didn't go first turn Clamp, and then later I kind of regretted it since he didn't make a turn 1 play. On the other hand, Pierce was good here. It's a good card for this deck, and I do kind of wish it was in here, but you know, it's just how it is. Like, I mean, you have to make cuts at some point. I don't even have, I don't, that and Tragon Predator are two cards that I really wish were in here. Anyway, so at first I was in kind of a bad spot because I went ahead and played my commander. He plays his, and then on the next turn he's threatening to be able to take my commander and start attacking with both of his creatures and drawing two cards. But my deck is just so kind. I just naturally draw a Jace, bounce his guy, smash in with Edric. I'm sitting on Remand now. Draw a Signet, which is going to be good next turn, but I want to chill on the Remand. So I go ahead and Remand his Dragonclaw. And find myself a Crucible, which could be useful since I have a fetch land in the graveyard, but I actually draw an Ancient Tomb, so I tomb into Simic Signet, get down with another Elf and a Glenelendra, and then I actually plus up Jace and duck a Oracle on the top of his deck to the bottom, tuck rather. So he's almost able to cast his commander and use it immediately. But until he gets there, I'm just going to keep bouncing it back to his hand one way or another. I've Jaced it back, I've Remanded it back, and I've Jaced it back. So far, his commander's been in play 3 times, and it's gone nowhere. So I've got even more mana, and I'm sitting on Cryptic Command. Opponent goes for his commander, targets my Edric to take control of it. I let him, he pays for it, and then I go ahead and just bounce his commander and tap my Edric yet again, putting his commander back into his hand. I draw 2 more cards. And the reason I did it that way is because he had 3 blue when he resolved his commander, and I didn't want to get in a Cryptic Command battle with him over it. I'd rather just make the play I made, because not being able to draw a card off Cryptic Command is absolutely trivial when I'm attacking with Edric over and over. Anyway, on the next turn I cast Terastodon. I cast Green Sun Zenith for 8 and still have 2 blue up for mana drain. My opponent goes ahead and packs it in. Seems reasonable. I also, not only did I Green Sun Zenith for 8, but I went ahead and used Jace to bounce one of his tokens as well. Wasn't looking too good there for him. Alright, so I have to mulligan against this guy. He's playing Azuri, and he's actually a fan of the channel, which is very cool. So not only was this really challenging because well, he had some idea what he was facing first of all, which helps, nothing wrong with that, but also he's been using some of the tech from the Edric deck in his Azuri deck, and then taking that as a framework, he's modified his deck. You know, he took his deck as a framework and then modified it using some of the Edric tech. So that's actually has improved his deck and made him a much more challenging opponent, as you'll see in this game. I believe it's this game. So anyway, I've got a great start though. Obviously, I'm just gonna chill out on counters. He's got Tranquil Thicket, which I don't agree with in any deck. The cycling lands are not good because you shouldn't, unless you're comboing with Life from the Loam and something like Intuition, you shouldn't have time for this in any match. You should either play it because you want to develop, or draw a different card, or just play like I do with less lands. But I don't know. Maybe he's got Loam Intuition. That didn't ever come up. At any rate, I go ahead and play Edric, and he plays Oracle, not his commander, which is what I was expecting. Fortunately, I am able to drop Cradle and move into Sword of Fire and Ice, which was my plan. So I figured he'd play his commander, and then I was going to sword up Edric and hit him because pro blue, and draw like 2 cards and hit him for some extra damage and just have a huge advantage. But instead, I send in, and he wisely, of course, blocks with his Oracle. Since I would shoot it with the sword if he didn't block, that would be the crazy play. So he makes the right play there. So I do get a card, his card, but he's already drawn a land off it. So actually, he completely broke even, and he's tempoing me. And then he plays Whirler Rogue. So he can tap 2 artifacts to make a creature unblockable, for the rest of the turn, and he gets 2/1 colorless flyers, and the fact that they're colorless really matters, considering I have a pro blue sword. And then, to make matters worse, he gets to Court of Calling Convoke off the rider into Reclamation Sage for my sword. Fortunately, I have a backup plan, but this being green, of course, is yet another blocker, potentially, if I had the sword. Just problem after problem. So luckily, I draw a Glen Elendra. I've got the Ancient Tomb. The main problem I'm having in this game actually is not as much what he's doing. It's the fact that I haven't got a second blue, so I can't make a play and counter. So I have to tap out yet again this turn. I go ahead and equip Sword on Edric, and of course he chumps with Rec Sage. So he got a Court of Calling. He Rec Saged away my card, and then I killed his Reclamation Sage, and we're right back where we started. An utter break even, but it cost me tempo. So he gets Azuri, his commander, and a Wirewood Symbiote, which allows him to get 1 experience counter. So his experience counters are to the top left, which means these guys are going to start getting bigger, and he's got a survival with 2 cards left in hand. He's now got a 3/3 Whirler Rogue who's going to continue to grow potentially. I do think that he made a misplay here. He should have actually went ahead and tried to start growing creatures that could block Edric. The best one probably being the Thopters. He could use 1 as a chump and then get a 2/2, then a 3/3, then a 4/4, and he's going to be doing all right. But at any rate, so he pumped up the 3/3, pumped up his biggest guy. So I attack with Edric, he blocks, and then I decide that I can. So because Edric only took 1 damage, I can move the sword, which I could not have done if he had blocked with 2 creatures, because Edric would have fallen over dead as soon as he unequipped. And I decide I'm just going to sit, even though I drew a Trigon Predator, which is no longer in the deck, which would be Solemn Simulacrum, I think, and would be a heck of a lot better. At any rate, I decide I'm going to chill out on the Memory Lapse. I was considering Merchant Scrolling for Force of Will here, actually, but the reason I'm doing this is the Dryad Arbor can block the big guy and the commander, both being pro-blue. It can block the Symbiote on the ground, and I want him to attack with the Thopter so that Edric can get through, or force him to block with the Symbiote. At any rate, I was hoping he was out of gas. Not even close. He's got Prime Speaker Zagana. So I've got to Memory Lapse it, and now I know that that's coming next turn, which is a real problem. I draw Jace, so I'm like, this is great. So I want a Jace, and then +2 it, and dump that Zagana away. The problem is I don't have a second blue that's functional. I have Cavern of Souls. So I send in with Arbor, hoping for some reason he won't block and I'll get to draw extra cards and find a blue. Of course he blocks. So I send in with Arbor as is, though, because he can't block with either of these 2 creatures, so I knew he wasn't going to be able to block and kill him. The problem is I wasn't thinking it through. So what I should have done was I should have moved Sword over to Edric and attack with Edric, and then move Sword back to Arbor. Because I cannot move the Sword over to Edric now, which means I'm not going to be able to block. If I move, again, the Arbor will fall over dead since it's already taken a point of damage. So the play I'm about to make, which is to Merchant Scroll for Force of Will, because I have to stop Zagana, right? Well, that play is a lot crappier if I'd moved, if I'd had a blocker, you know, had Edric equipped right now, and or Dryad Arbor equipped on defense. But I don't. So he, knowing I have Force of Will, he goes ahead and survivals this Prime Speaker away, and he goes and gets Duskwatch Recruiter. It's a really interesting card because it's a kind of a green Jam Day tome. I guess if you're playing with the new cards, you're more familiar than I am. It's a little slow for this format. It's certainly no Edric, but because he's got a ton of mana and it has the potential to just kind of refill his hand, I feel like I have to Force of Will it. Plus, it's green, and I didn't want him to have 3 points, like too many green creatures that just continually feed into this sword machine and just kind of block me indefinitely, have time to use survival and win this game. So he plays Opposition. So he played perfectly. He correctly baited me out with a possible Jam Day tome, which and then used that to pave the way for Opposition. and now I'm in a lot of trouble. I was in bad shape before, but it's a ton of trouble now. And the worst thing is that that symbiote, if it grows any more, if it grows too much more, he's going to be able to just block my creature with sword on it. I won't be able to get through, and that'll be pretty much game over. Because it's unlikely I'm going to have blue mana to play Jace with. So I'm not sure about this play from his side, but he goes ahead and taps down Tomb, Cradle, and Temple. I might have, if I were him, just tap Temple and Cradle. But that's not the play he makes. I'm sorry. So I tried Natural Order. It's kind of interesting because you can't actually tap the Arbor, and now having the sword on the Arbor is actually useful to me because you can't tap the Arbor, so it's a guaranteed green every turn, even with the opposition out, which is pretty cool. But I decide I need to hit more. I need to hit more land drops, so I'm just going to send in the team and then use Sword of Fire and Ice to kill his Wirewood. So what he could have done here is he could have picked up his Zuri to untap his Wirewood and then used that to block my Arbor or Edric. Probably I don't know, either way. If you block the Arbor, for example, he prevents me from drawing 2 cards. If you block Edric, he prevents me from drawing 1, but forces me to recast Edric. They're both good plays. This play here I'm not so sure about that he made. But I go ahead and draw Wooded Foothills and a doggone Spell Pierce. And I draw Unified Will. Now he's down to 2 creatures and I have 2, so I can't actually play Unified Will successfully. He plays Yavimaya Hollow. He's down to 1 card in hand. So I'm really hoping that means he bricked, basically, and has drawn too many lands. And so because I have Jace, I don't sack the Foothills at the end of his turn. I just sit on it for a bit. During my upkeep, he taps down Edric and a Cradle, and I draw Green Sun Zenith. So I could just Zenith here to kill opposition, but I decide I'm going to attack first, grab some cards. I shoot him because I don't really have a good target over there. I get Skull Clamp Snapcaster. It's not super great here, but I actually decide, because I'm hoping to be able to get Unified Will on board, I decide that I'm gonna Zenith for 2 here. Also because I'm thinking that if he has a counter, he might not see this as dangerous, but a Zenith for 3 he would, because everybody knows about Reclamation Sage. So I Zenith for 2. He does let me have it, or doesn't have a way to stop it. So that lets me get Scrib Ranger, Pro Blue. So I have 2 Pro Blue creatures. It also lets me untap the Arbor and replay Tropical because I got it off of fetch. I haven't actually played a land this turn, so I can now throw down a Skull Clamp for no real reason. But I've got Unified Will ready to go and feeling a lot better about my situation. So these creatures are growing. Don't care that much. And then during my upkeep, he gets Azuri's my Cradle. I float mana. Hoping that he won't tap during my draw step. He doesn't. He doesn't catch that trick, which is cool. The thing to do if you are using opposition and you tap your opponent's stuff during their upkeep, you should, and they float mana, go ahead and just do as much as you're going to do anyway. Or if you think they have a use for the mana, go to their draw step and then tap their stuff again. Makes it really hard when you divide it up between phases. Anyway, using Scrib on Arbor and playing and replaying land, I go ahead and cast Glen Elendra. My opponent Mystical Tutors in response. Sad days for him. I figure if he had a counter, I would have seen it by now, so I go ahead and just slam Jace and plus it up to Tuck Eldritch Evolution, which is what he tutored for. Excuse me for the hiccups. I apologize. Hiccups, yawns, it's terrible. Hit him with Scrib Ranger, and I am done. So he does have a bit of a window here in which, because I cannot sack Glen Elendra, but on the other hand, it's gonna there aren't a ton of things you can do. Oh, they're super dangerous. He sends in his 7/7, so I just pick up my Tropical Island and block with the Scrib Ranger all day long. And then at this point I feel like it's safe enough to go for a natural order, so I do. And strangely enough, I don't get Terrastodon. I don't get Terrastodon because I'm enjoying hitting him with my creatures, and just he's got a ton of mana, so just giving him a bunch of elephants doesn't seem too great to me. So go ahead and get Acidic Slime instead, and use Slime to clear opposition off the table. And then I just actually Jace Slime back to my hand because I have a ton of mana floating off Gaia's Cradle, and recast Slime and kill his Yavimaya Hollow, which was a way that he could potentially, he could get a green creature and then block my sorted up stuff and regenerate over and over, or he could get, like, say, Birds of Paradise and then just block anything and regenerate over and over. So I just didn't want him to have even that option. So I'm pretty good now. I'm definitely not going to tap out again if I can help it. And if it looks like I'm tapped out, I'm not really. So I've got the 1 blue for Glen Elendra, of course, but if you were to play a big creature like Terrastodon here, for example, what I do is I pick up a forest to untap Arbor, and then I cast a Unified Will. So he makes a baffling mistake, plays Mox Diamond and just kills it. Don't quite follow what that was about. Maybe some frustration on his part, sort of a realization that he's drawn too many lands, too many turns, and nobody likes that feeling, and I assume that's what's causing the angst over there, if that's what it was. At any rate, my turn, I go ahead and precast a Llanowar Elf before tapping my Gaia's Cradle, so that way I can pick up my Acidic Slime, recast Acidic Slime yet again. Let's take out Ancient Tomb, and with that gone, I'm going to go ahead and cast Jitte, equip it, and get him for some more damage. So a lot of procs on the stack now. I'm sitting on 2 blue, plus I can untap the Arbor. I can therefore cast Unified Will and back it up with a counterspell off Glen Elendra. So I am in good shape. Go ahead and throw away excess lands. Want to cast Merchant Scroll. He's got 1 card in hand. He scrolls for Muddle. No problems. Muddles for Nest Invader. I don't quite follow what's going on there. I assume he meant a survival here. I don't really know. Doesn't matter at this point. I'm way too far ahead, so I'm just going to go ahead and counter it since he's tapped out. He's no cards in hand. I've got excess counters, so plus I've got something even better. So my turn. I'm just going to hit play. So I pod, sacking Glen Elendra, fetching a Deranged Tournament so that Cradle now produces 11. I go ahead and hardcast a Terrastodon. I then killing land on his part, and then I Rift, Jitte up, and kill him for exactly lethal. So it was an interesting game though, because I think for a lot of that game he was actually ahead. So now I'm going to jump to the last 4 games, only because the video is going to get a little long, plus it's late and I'm tired, and I want to just do a few games with the final version of the deck. So we'll check those out here. So we'll just jump to these like last 4 here. Let's see how they play out. Hopefully they're interesting. So great hand. I'm playing against Brago. So I go first turn Arbor Elf with a dual land. Second turn miss a land drop. But I go ahead and I think this may have been a mistake, but I go ahead and fetch a Draga Tree Speaker, Zenith for 1. Still miss a land drop. I mean, it would have looked brilliant if I hadn't missed a land drop here, perhaps. Because if I could have played a land here and then cast Archdruid, I'd be in amazing shape. I also misplayed because I didn't tap Tree Speaker to level him right there. Should have. If I wasn't going to use the mana anyway, I might as well have leveled him. My opponent, on the other hand, played Seagate Oracle and Brago, so he's obviously intending to use Brago as a card drawing machine off the Oracle. I am continuing to not draw land. So I kind of make a little, I don't know if it's desperation play, but it's certainly a gamble here. So I play Elvish Archdruid, and then I image his Brago. And I could have done this differently. I could have used Tezzeret and then fetched a copy of Brago that way. I could have used Merchant Scroll and tried to bounce Brago with Rift. But I take the risk with the image here. And it pays off. My opponent plays Raven Familiar, but he does not have a way to target my image. And so the payoff is he doesn't get to hit me with Brago. He doesn't really, and if he can't hit you with that commander, if they can't hit you with the commander, the deck usually just peters out and dies. So my turn to go ahead and cast Edric so that Elvish Archdruid taps for a little bit more mana. Tap him for 4. Untap a land, make it 5, and cast Merchant Scroll for Force of Will. And then I cast myself a Tezzeret. So I've got Force of Will and Tezzeret comfortably in hand. And I go ahead and go get Winter Orb. Under these conditions, if my opponent is to target Brago, it will die. I can't Force of Will to protect it. It dies as soon as it's targeted, but with the Winter Orb out, the Raven Familiar is certainly going to die from Echo, so it's going to be one less card for him to flip. And if he's drawing extra cards off Seagate and he uses some of his mana to kill my Brago so he can do it, he's already going to be feeling the pinch on mana really hard. And those extra cards are a lot less valuable when you don't have the mana to play them. So, yep, opponent does nothing. And then attempts to cast Aether Snipe. And this is amazing for me because if this Aether Snipe had been an actual spell, it would have targeted Brago as soon as he announced it. But because it's a creature that has to come into play in order to target Brago, I'm able to force it. Pitching Merchant Scroll in this case. And so it never actually makes it into play. So he doesn't get to kill Brago, and that one turn is pretty much all she wrote. I drew a Polluted Delta. I've got a ton of mana now with an active Archdruid. And I go ahead and kill my Tezzeret in order to go get Umezawa's Jite. And at that point, my opponent just flat out gives up. So I have an Edric. He's a 3/3. He's got a Jite on. I still got a couple of mana here in my pool. 2, 3, 4, 5 in play that's available. Plus 2 in the pool, 7. So I could have, for example, cast either Slime or Simulacrum here. Probably Slime, I assume. And then attacked with Edric and Brago. And the problem for him then becomes if he blocks my Brago, then Jite kills his commander. If he blocks Edric, then I use Brago to flip the Acid Slime that would come down. Plus I get to kill his commander anyway with the Jite tokens after combat. So it's all around bad for my opponent, and with that going on, he just scoops it up there. So now I'm playing against Rototaru, who is using some commander. It's a 6-mana blue commander. It's a 4/4 that gives horsemanship. But the bottom line is it's a 6-mana blue commander. It says all your creatures are unblockable. Whoop-de-doo. On the other hand, my opponent's got going first, turn 2 Mana Crypt into Thran Dynamo. Fortunately, I natural the Reclamation Sage, and when I believe I mulliganed and then was able to see that there was a natural order on top. So next turn, if you can just not kill me this turn, I should be in good shape. But because I have a counterspell and my opponent didn't do anything there, I decide not to do anything either. I'll catch him when he tries to make a play. So I really screwed up though. On that turn, what I should have done right there, well, did I? No, I guess I didn't. I don't think that was this turn. Anyway, so sitting pat on the remand is probably the right call. Because I'm hoping what he does is plays his commander, and then I remand it and natural order him. Instead, he plays Kaiga the Tidestar, which I remand into a mana leak. So right here's where I screwed up. My opponent's totally tapped out. I could tap 5 mana, cast Sword of Feast and Famine, equip Reclamation Sage, hit my opponent, untap all my lands, and then go ahead and cast my Natural Order. I'm so excited to cast Natural Order that I just attack with both. Potentially walking into a daze also. Just so much bad play right here. But he doesn't have days, and I'm able to go ahead and sack the Reclamation Sage. So the Reclamation Sage killed 3 mana on the way in and 4 mana on the way out. You kill a Mana Crypt Island, and a Thran Dynamo when it was cast. I draw a Chord of Calling next turn, and that lets me chord for 2 if I want to. But instead, I go ahead and just cast Sword of Feast and Famine sitting on a counter. And then next turn, I'm able to play Elvish Mystic, cast... I don't think I cast here. I think we're bugging out. I played Elvish Mystic. I equip Terastodon. I attack with Terastodon. I get to untap all my lands, and then what that's going to let me do is potentially... that's another synergy with Chord and Sword, is that you can actually hit your opponent with a sorted up creature, tap all your mana with the sword ability on the stack, then let the sword ability resolve, tap all your lands again, and with the lands that you had floating previously, the combined total allows you to chord for a larger effect. At any rate, this is going to bug out, but yeah, my opponent went in and scooped it up there. This guy Monkey 420, I don't think he gave me a good game. I think this was no action scoop, but hopefully it was. I went ahead and mulliganed. This is against Tristani, Selesnia's Voice. My opponent's got a good draw. Oh yeah, but I get a better one. I get Jiraga early, and then Jiraga into Tezzeret, cast a Vedalken Shackles, search for a Winter Orb. My opponent's got a Crozen Verge and a tap land. So at this point, my opponent's played 2 tapped lands and no spells, and I've got 7 permanents on the board, including Tezzeret and Winter Orb and Vedalken Shackles against green-white. He scoops, not a problem. And last of all, I was playing against Legion Sharon, and he's got Jace, baby Jace, like ultra baby Jace, the one that flips. So that's his commander, and I have to mulligan, but I mulligan into an insane start. And I'm hoping he does exactly what I wanted him to do, which is play his commander on turn 2, because he shouldn't be able to hopefully counter here. So I'm going for it. Mana Confluence into Mana Crypt into Garruk, and I make a beast. So this wasn't exactly as good as it could have been, but what this does is it sets me up for Natural Order next turn. And if I don't feel comfortable casting Natural Order, like if he's got too much mana up, then I can go with like a Solemn Simulacrum, Garruk my lands, copy artifact type play, or even an Acidic Slime play, depending on if I draw lands. So plus there is my commander as well, threatening him. It could come down at any time. So I'm feeling really good about the situation. Obviously I'm loaded up on mana. So lose the flip, draw a land, which is really nice there. And go ahead and just use the Solemn Bait plan, because like I said, I'm feeling like it's pretty reasonable here to continue to just kind of bait my opponent out. So I play Solemn, it resolves. I untap 2 lands, I play Solemn and resolve it again. So next turn, I don't think I'll be feeling too much of a pinch when it comes to mana. My opponent draws and discards with Jason. He gives up at that point. So obviously, I have next turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus Garruk 8, 9, plus the potential to draw a land. So I've got 9 mana for sure. I could go all the way up plus like 3 if I drew a Gaia's Cradle, for example. But next turn with 9 mana, I can actually cast both cards in my hand, or I can somehow intersect my... I can use my commander as a bait spell. I can throw my commander out there. If my opponent doesn't do anything, then I get to draw 3 cards off the creatures in play. If he takes action and burns his mana, then I simply Natural Order him out of the game. So if my opponent tapped out on his turn, on the other hand, I could just go Acidic Slime, kill one of your lands, Natural Order Terastodon, kill all the rest. Pretty awesome stuff. So anyway, that's it. That's all I've got. You do see at least a little bit about how Solemn Simulacrum is pretty interesting, I think, in this deck. But partly because it's running workshop. But you know, I don't know. We'll see. It is a little slow. And then as far as Cord and the other cards go, I feel like they're good. I feel like I like them. Yeah, that's another combo with Phantasmal Image and Solemn, is you can actually equip the image in order to kill it. You can attempt to equip it to kill it off. If it's a copy of a Solemn, it might actually help you out in a situation. So anyway, lots of cool stuff going on here. Hope you had fun, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.